Hi, my name is Claudia Katsademas, and I'm in my fourth year of environmental sciences at U of G. I've worked as a USRA student and a climate-smart soils scholar in Claudia Wagner-Riddle's agricultural micrometeorology lab this summer. My project has looked at the impact of climate-smart soils on the albedo of crop fields. Climate-smart soils are soil management practices aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the soil, described first by Postian et al. In 2016. Reduced tillage, cover crops, and improved crop rotations can be used to minimize nitrous oxide emissions or to increase carbon dioxide sequestration. Ideally, these climate-smart soil practices would be implemented in more fields around the world to minimize our climate impact in agriculture. While the goal for these practices is to slow climate warming by mitigating emissions, it's important that the changes made to the landscape aren't leading to an increase in warming themselves. This has the potential to make a difference because the energy from the sun or the incoming solar radiation can be reflected or absorbed when it reaches the Earth's surface, depending on the surface characteristics. The albedo is calculated from the proportion of reflected solar radiation from the incoming solar radiation at midday. Surfaces that reflect more radiation can have a net cooling effect. These have high albedos and tend to be lighter colored, like snow, while surfaces that reflect less radiation or absorb more radiation can have a net warming effect. These are darker surfaces that have lower albedos. Imagine this is like the warmth of wearing a black t-shirt on a sunny day. When we make changes that lower the albedo of the ground, we increase surface warming. If this is the case with cover crops or diverse crop rotations, it has the potential to negate the beneficial effects of lowering greenhouse gas emissions through climate-smart soils. Looking now at the methods section, my project has compared the albedo of two fields during an ongoing 3-year crop rotation with different rotation systems, where one plot followed a conventional rotation and the other followed a climate-smart soil system with a diverse rotation and cover crops. The incoming and outgoing solar radiation was measured using the pyranometer component of a net radiometer, which is the sensor in the glass dome on the right of the instrument shown in the photo at the bottom corner. I found that the effect of cover crops on the albedo was minimal. Looking now at the figures in the results section, each figure displays the albedo throughout the year, starting in April 2018 through to July 2020. The pink dots are the average daily albedo on the climate-smart field, and the blue dots are the same for the conventional. Starting in April 2018, the two fields had the same base crop, and cover crops were planted in the fall on the diverse field. This changed the surface visually, though it did not significantly impact the albedo. In 2019, the climate-smart plot had cover crops, and the base of both plots were a combination of bare soil and corn residue, until soy was planted. And despite the visual difference in the spring before the soy had been planted, there was no difference in the albedo. Winter wheat was planted in the fall of 2019, where there was no data for the two plots. In the spring of 2020, there's no difference in the albedo, and then soy was planted on the conventional plot while the winter wheat continued to grow throughout the season. As the soy grew quite differently compared to the wheat, the albedo was significantly different. This study is ongoing, and further changes may be seen by the end of 2020 as more cover crops will be added to the climate-smart field after the wheat harvest this upcoming fall. Overall, trends in the data suggest that the presence of cover crops has almost no effect on the albedo of the surface when compared to fields with the same backdrop of crops, bare soil, or crop residue. The implications of this study are such that the cover crops and diverse rotations have a minimal impact on albedo. This suggests that climate-smart soil practices will not introduce unwanted surface warming that could offset the other beneficial effects. Further studies to quantify the overall changes to the energy budget would be helpful to understand the magnitude of the impacts of agricultural management. As well, longer-term studies with further variations would be helpful in determining other possible impacts on albedo under different conditions. I'd like to thank Claudia Wagner-Riddle for her advice on this project and NSERC for the necessary project funding. And I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation.